The emergency signal came through at the worst possible time. Commander Vethrael of the Karathi Security Division received the alert while reviewing trade reports in his office aboard Station 17. His 4 eyes blinked in quick succession as he read the message twice. 3 cubs from the merchant vessel Bright Dawn had gone missing during the station's sleep cycle. The cubs belonged to a Karathi family traveling through the sector. They were young, barely past their first molting season, and they had somehow slipped away from their parents during a routine supply stop. Vethrael pushed himself up from his seat and grabbed his scanner. Missing cubs on a busy trading station was never good news. Station 17 was home to over 40 different species. It had countless corridors, maintenance tunnels, and cargo bays where small creatures could disappear. The Karathi people were known for their size and strength as adults, but their young were small, curious, and completely fearless, a dangerous combination in any environment. The security team assembled within minutes. Vethrael led them through the main corridors while checking the tracking system for any sign of the missing children. The cubs had been wearing standard identification chips, but the signal was weak and scattered. It seemed to bounce from one location to another before settling somewhere near the station's upper levels. Officer Yenis walked beside the commander with her weapon holstered but ready. She was a Telvari, a species known for their excellent night vision and tracking abilities. Her long ears twitched as she listened for any unusual sounds in the corridors around them. "The parents are terrified," she said quietly. "Mother Kethia said the cubs were playing in their quarters when she went to check the cargo manifest. When she returned, they were gone. The door had been left open by a maintenance worker." Vethrael made a low, rumbling sound in his throat. Maintenance workers on the station were usually careful about security protocols, but accidents happened. Cubs were naturally drawn to open doors and new spaces. It was in their nature to explore. The team moved through the commercial district first. They checked every shop, every storage room, and every ventilation access point. The merchants cooperated fully. Some of them joined the search, calling out in different languages and shining lights into dark corners. But there was no sign of the missing children. An hour passed. Then 2. The parents had joined the search by now, and Mother Kethia's distress was visible in the trembling of her 4 arms. She called her cubs' names over and over, her voice growing hoarse. Vethrael was beginning to consider the possibility that the cubs had found their way into the maintenance tunnels when Officer Yenis suddenly stopped walking. Her ears rotated toward the ceiling, and her eyes narrowed. "Commander," she said, "I hear something. Very faint, coming from above us." They were standing near the entrance to the human sector of the station. This area housed the quarters and common spaces for the human crew members who worked on Station 17. Humans were relatively new members of the galactic community, having made first contact only 30 standard years ago. They were an odd species by most accounts, not particularly strong, not especially fast, and lacking any natural weapons like claws or venom. But they had proven useful in many roles, and the station employed several dozen of them in various positions. Vethrael led the team into the human sector and followed the weak signal from the cubs' identification chips. The signal grew stronger as they approached one of the human habitat units. According to the station records, this particular unit belonged to a human named Sarah Chen. She worked as an engineer in the Environmental Systems Department. The door to the habitat was not locked. Vethrael knocked firmly and announced himself as station security. There was no response from inside. He checked the work schedule and saw that Engineer Chen was currently on duty in the lower levels of the station, performing routine maintenance on the air recycling systems. Following protocol, Vethrael entered the access code that allowed security personnel to enter unoccupied quarters during emergencies. The door slid open, and the team stepped inside. The human habitat was small by Karathi standards, but efficiently arranged. There was a sleeping platform against one wall, a food preparation area, and a workstation covered in technical documents and tools. The lights were dimmed to a comfortable level, and the air carried a faint scent that Yennis identified as something called jasmine tea. Vethral scanned the room with his equipment. The signal from the cub's chips was strong now, coming from somewhere near the entrance. He turned his attention to a structure mounted on the wall beside the door. It was a rack of some kind, designed to hold several round objects that he recognized as human protective headgear. Helmets, they called them. The rack held 3 helmets of different sizes, and there, curled up in the spaces between the helmets, were 3 small Karathi cubs. They were fast asleep, their tiny bodies pressed close together for warmth. Someone had placed a soft cloth over them like a blanket, and one of the cubs was clutching a small stuffed toy that clearly did not belong to a Karathi. Yennis made a soft sound of surprise. Mother Kethia pushed past the security officers and rushed toward her children. She reached out with trembling arms but stopped herself before touching them. Her eyes were wet with tears of relief. "They are safe," she whispered. "They are safe and sleeping." Vethral examined the scene carefully. The cubs appeared unharmed. Their breathing was steady, and their fur was clean and properly groomed. Someone had taken care of them. Someone had made them comfortable and let them sleep. He activated his communication device and contacted Engineer Chen in the lower levels. Her voice came through clearly after a moment of static. "Commander Vethral, is something wrong?" "Engineer Chen," he said. "There are 3 Karathi cubs sleeping in your helmet rack. Their parents have been searching for them for several hours. Can you explain how they came to be in your quarters?" There was a brief pause before Chen responded. Her voice carried a note of concern. "Oh no. Are the parents upset? I found those little ones wandering in the corridor outside my door about 4 hours ago. They looked lost and tired. I tried to contact security, but my communication device malfunctioned. The cubs were scared and cold, so I brought them inside to keep them safe. I gave them some warm milk and let them play with my daughter's old toys. She left them here during her last visit. The cubs fell asleep in the helmet rack on their own. I think they liked the small, enclosed space. I was going to report to security as soon as my shift ended." Mother Kethia listened to the explanation with wide eyes. Her expression shifted from confusion to something deeper, something close to wonder. "She kept them safe," she said quietly. "This human kept my children safe and warm while we searched." Vethral nodded slowly. He had worked with humans before, and he knew they had strange instincts when it came to young creatures. They seemed to form protective bonds quickly, even with species completely different from their own. Some called it a weakness. Others called it one of their greatest strengths. Engineer Chen arrived at her quarters 20 minutes later, still wearing her work uniform. She was a small human woman with dark hair and kind eyes. When she saw the cubs still sleeping peacefully, she smiled. "I hope I did not cause too much trouble," she said. "They were so tired, and they seemed frightened. I could not leave them alone in the corridor." Mother Kethia approached the humans slowly. The size difference between them was significant. Kethia stood nearly 3 meters tall, while Chen barely reached her chest. But the Karathi mother lowered herself down and gently touched the human's shoulder with one of her smaller hands. "You protected my children," Kethia said. "You gave them comfort when they were lost. Among my people, such an act creates a bond of honor that can never be broken. I owe you a debt that I can never fully repay." Chen looked uncomfortable with the formal words. She shook her head and smiled again. "Please, no debt is necessary. I just did what anyone would do. They are children. They needed help." But Vethral knew that not everyone would have done the same. He had seen how some species reacted to the young of other races. Fear, disgust, and indifference were all common responses. The human had shown none of these things. She had simply seen 3 small creatures in need and had responded with kindness. The cubs began to wake as their mother gently lifted them from the helmet rack. The smallest one opened its eyes and saw Chen standing nearby. Instead of showing fear, the cub reached out toward the human with its tiny arms. "Friend," it said in broken common speech. "Nice friend gave milk." Chen laughed softly and touched the cub's small hand with her finger. The gesture was simple but full of warmth. Vethril made his official report later that evening. He noted that the cubs had been found safe and unharmed. He documented the actions of engineer Sarah Chen and recommended that she receive a commendation for her assistance during the incident. He also added a personal note at the end of the report. "The humans continue to surprise us," he wrote. "They bond with young creatures regardless of species. They offer protection to those who cannot protect themselves. They share warmth with strangers. These behaviors serve no logical purpose for their own survival, yet they perform them without hesitation. Perhaps this is why they have spread so quickly among the stars. They do not simply occupy space. They make connections. They build families in unexpected places. They turn strangers into friends." The report was filed and archived with thousands of others. But somewhere on Station 17, a small Karathi cub still carried a stuffed toy given to it by a human engineer. And somewhere in the human sector, a helmet rack had become something more than a simple storage device. It had become a safe place where lost children could rest until their families found them again. The galaxy was vast and often cold. But there were warm places in it still. Sometimes those places were found in the most unexpected locations. Sometimes they were created by the kindness of strangers who refused to look away when small creatures needed help. The humans called it simple decency. The rest of the galaxy was still learning to understand what that truly meant.